Dear colleagues, I'm pleased to be here, and I'm honored that British Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce give me right to open this event today. So I'm very glad to welcome you in Ukrainian IT Day. It is very important that one day was devoted to IT out of Ukrainian week here in London, and I'm pleased to invite for opening word here Oleksandr Danchenko, head of Ukrainian Parliamentary Committee for Information and Communication.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Доброго ранку, українські представники в Лондоні. First of all, I want to thank Great Britain for supporting Ukraine in the war with Russia. Our Ukrainian people appreciate such support. As you know, I am head of IT and Telecom Committee in Ukrainian Parliament. In the Parliament, I represented new pro-European political party Samopomich. Our main task to build the strong economy in Ukraine. The example of the leading countries of the world show only one way. This way called digital economy. Great Britain is a world leader for digital economy. Ukraine is now start build digitalization and new digital services in our country. What we do for last 4 years, you know that we start build digital infrastructure, because without the digital infrastructure, it's impossible to build any digital economy. You know that we made 3G, 4G tender and start build this 3G and 4G network in Ukraine. I prepare some slides. Who can help?
That looks like Ukrainian better. I think they're going to fix it in a second.
Carry on anyway, it's okay.
Okay. I want to show you our results for last 3 years. We go up in our ranks. You see our position in doing business rank. We have a new position for innovation, Global Innovation Index. We have a new position, Global Open Data Index. It shows that a country start work on the digital reforms. IT and telecom market now for in the first half of 2018, telecom market was 35 billion hryvnia. In total, IT and telecom in first half of this year, we show 60 billion hryvnia total turnover. As you know, we create Digital Agenda 2020 for Ukraine, and what we expect in the future, together with all representative business which we have today in London, we expected that 6.4 times industry growth in hryvnias. We expected that our digital industry will be have 5.7% in the country GDP. More than 180,000 people will be working for our industry. Now in our service exports, IT services have 19.6% from total Ukrainian exports for this year. You see, it's a huge amount, and I hope that it will be growth. Digital reforms. What we need for digital reforms? First of all, as I am said before, we should build digital infrastructure. European Union example, Great Britain example show us that country must have more than 97% coverage of high-speed internet access, 97% from coverage for all territory. Now in Ukraine we have just 30%. Just 30%. First of all, we should be built with digital infrastructure. Administrative reform. Unfortunately, we not made administrative reform in Ukraine as well. And we still just one country in the world which doesn't have any representative person in cabinet of ministry. And when yesterday some people from digital economy ministry from Great Britain asked me who responsible in Ukrainian cabinet ministry for digitalization, for telecom. Unfortunately, it doesn't have this person. It's a big problem for us because European Union, Great Britain, US, as our partners, doesn't have any connection with the cabinet ministry of Ukraine. It's a really big problem for us. Legislative. We know that we voted in Ukrainian parliament cybersecurity law, a new cybersecurity law. It's very important for our country because we have a hybrid war with Russia, but now we can start build our cybersecurity in Ukraine. Also in the parliament we have electronic communications law, new radio frequency law, and it was already done trust public services law. Digital Ukraine, it's just one way for our economy. Digitalization, it's just one way for all world, and I'm invite for common work on the digital economy in Ukraine. Thank you.
Okay, let's start. Good morning. My name is Evgeni Utkin. So I'm involved in IT and the high-tech business more than 40 years. And I remember in the beginning of this millennium, it was EBRD meeting in Tashkent. And the topic was, one of the topics in my panel was about can we build Silicon Valley in Ukraine? And I started with my presentation, but immediately when I, like Oleksandr, I just told the story about Ukraine, let's create Silicon Valley immediately after these words. Earthquake started, So it's my second, try today. So, and first of all, just we are going to talk about relationship between UK, Ukraine. So I think we have a lot of in common, especially two first letters, Ukraine, UK. So I propose to our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we start to discuss this very hot topic, I think. Please.
Well, good morning, everybody. Michael Mainelli. I'm the executive chairman of Zien. I haven't been to the Ukraine since '84 when Kiev was a closed city, but I remember it in those days. As master of the world traders, I've got an intense interest in joint trade. And in fact, we took a delegation to the Ukraine 4 years ago to try and develop more British-Ukrainian trade.
Yaroslav, Lyubinets. I'm co-founder and chairman of the board of SoftServe. SoftServe is the largest IT company in Ukraine, and we're proud to say that we are a global company with Ukrainian origins, and we operate in 10 countries right now, and work in different verticals, different industries, and we can say that now we are advisors and providers. So we can advise global companies, UK company, other company in the way to the digital transformation, and we also can implement all this decision on the way to digital transformation.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name's Simon Spier. I lead on international trade at techUK. techUK, for those of you who don't know, is the trade association for the technology industry in the UK. We have just under 1,000 technology companies as members, and they range from startups through to Intel, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, BT. Not SoftServe yet, but we'll have a chat after. And my role is to work with our members to help them realise opportunities outside of the UK. It's to work internationally to encourage inward investment into the UK, and it's to work on smoothing out policy challenges when it comes to tech trade, so movement of people, movement of data. In a global Britain post-Brexit agenda, how can we improve trading relations on a bilateral and multilateral level?
Simon, and do you have some connections with Ukraine?
We don't have as many as we would like. At the moment, until recently, we were very focused on the UK. Post-referendum and the Global Britain agenda, we are looking more and more at how we can help our members go internationally, but also to open up the UK for inward investment. We haven't done as much as perhaps we would like with the Ukraine. That's one of the reasons why I'm here, to see how we can do that.
Mm-hmm. And do you know Ukraine is one of the destinations for a lot of high-tech company for outsourcing?
Yes.
So just last year, as I remember, it was more than $3 billion we made with outsourcing. Michael, please tell us a little bit more about your group and what we, as Ukrainian companies, Ukrainian representative of our high-tech industry, how we can cooperate, in your opinion, with British companies.
Okay. Well, the audience might not be aware, but our firm runs a number of indices of the nature that Oleksandr put up earlier. So we run the Global Intellectual Property Index, the Global Financial Centers Index, the Global Green Finance Index, and a number of other indices, typically at the borders IT and finance, so I'll have a slightly financial bias to this. I think there's some interesting issues for the Ukraine. You're sort of coming to the party a little late, you know that, and you're trying to do work on it. I think it'll be interesting, though, to talk about, how's the party changed, and I'd like to direct my remarks towards that. So a lot of the early nearshoring, outsourcing issues were to do originally with EBRD. We were looking at Romania, Slovakia. These were the countries that mattered in those days. But the business model was also different. Now, Paul Collier, Oxford economist, who writes quite a bit about the changing nature of development, points out that actually middle countries are getting heavily squeezed at the moment. If I want to develop, I go to China. I get 1 billion plus people, and I'm bypassing a lot of things on the way. His argument is largely focused on Africa, but I think he has some resonance in this situation. And so we've seen some of the other areas, and I would point to Estonia and Lithuania as interesting places where this type of late arrival development, late being the last 15 years, has actually gone quite well. But I think that's changing. And the reason I think it's changing is really that the basics need to be there clearly. And so focusing on the infrastructure, you can't be connected in IT if you're not connected to very high quality stuff. But that's clearly insufficient as well. It's just the starting point. We then need, I think, more to focus on the nature of the companies that are coming. So for example, I'd point you to 4 issues that I think are very relevant. The first one is clearly the increasing focus and sensitivity to security. And in fact, Estonia to some degree has done a bit of a judo turn on that, saying that the problems that they had in 2007 that they've now gotten through mean that they're a high security nation. And I won't dwell on some of the security issues that the Ukraine has. I think the second thing is clearly intellectual property. This is changing as well. A lot of the business models out there eschew the old concepts of copywriting software. Certainly even on the patent front, patents are frankly defensive things. They're not offensive things or money-making. So it's difficult to see. But the control over intellectual property has become a problem in that most of the companies I advise and our own firm, where we build quite significant pieces of software, the idea is move fast and stay quiet about what you're doing. Third thing I think is speed. The speed of development and rollout is there. Any of us today could come up with a new application, and if it was really great, in theory, 7 billion people on the planet could have it tomorrow morning. And that's a very different view of the world than your traditional outsourcing view, which is I outsource or offshore development of some form. I send them some specifications. A few months later, they come back. They're not really very good. They didn't understand my spec. I go back and I roll all of that over. You just don't have time for that. And I think the last thing is componentization. So we've seen in software everything basically breaking down to small components. And this has a real effect. And if I had one emphasis today, it would probably be not about the IT element. It's about the ability to facilitate the rapid startup of very small companies. So to me, of the points Oleksandr made, I'd focus much more on the ease of doing business and climbing up that. I would focus on easy visa access. I would focus on a number of things that allow people to kind of come in and set up 3, 4, 5-man firms. Now this is where the UK story is actually probably not the one for the Ukraine to watch. I was on the science parks in the very, very early 80s up in Cambridge. And the story that you hear about the development of Cambridge is wrong. The small businesses were there and the science parks came later. So they do not attract it. And I think we're seeing the same thing here, which is people talk about, Level 39, which I happen to be an alderman in the City of London, so we fund about half of Level 39 with Canary Wharf Group. We also fund Angels in the City. We also fund a little bit of techUK in the early days, Tech Cities. We actually fund a lot of these startup groups. But they all came afterwards. The Silicon Roundabout that people talk about here and ministers claim they made is garbage. Those businesses had moved in there because there was cheap space and they found it easy to do. Later, the government comes and claims credit, and it's really not in anybody's interest to say, hey, government, you weren't there at the beginning. But these were all small businesses. So our latest survey of tech, those employed in fintech, which is a narrower subset than your 80,000 in IT, a very narrow subset, was about 76,000 people. A bit too precise for my liking, but 76,000 people work in fintech in the UK as of late March. Average firm size, under 5. So, so it gets dominated by a couple of names, and people want to recognize names. But I think this shows what's happening in the industry. We've seen these 5 enormous Americans, four enormous Chinese firms, but they're delivering the infrastructure that allow all these tiny little firms to go global instantly. And I think balancing that off until the Ukraine hits it lucky with its Google or Facebook or something, the area to focus on is facilitating very, very rapid development of small businesses. And most of that isn't really about IT. It's about running a good business environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because IT is like air, like electricity today. So everybody needs IT. So IT just, I think it's, and just one, I know the company ARM. You mentioned Cambridge. So
Yes.
I know the guy is the founder of the ARM. ARM, I think it's one of the best examples ever. Mm-hmm. Because ARM, it's not just only a British company. It's a company which created ecosystem around semiconductor industry, just around the world. So, and it's you mentioned it's very, very important, somebody big ones. If somebody like Google, Apple will launch business in Ukraine, I think it will be is a great driver for all of our industry. And Yaroslav, can you share with us your experience, international experience? Because I know SoftServe pretty well, actually, and you are probably will be unicorn soon, I guess. And I'd love to see your happy face.
Okay, so thank you, Vadim. And topic of our panel is UK context of IT cooperation, and I would like to look on this point from Ukrainian point of view. So how Ukrainian IT companies is looking on UK as partner in IT services. And first of all, UK is global country, and global country and open that can work with other culture and seeking for the best in all other countries and accept that. And Mikhail told that Ukraine is a little bit late in working with UK. Yeah, I would agree with that. And actually, Ukraine was oriented on IT services providing for US for many years, and our company was started 25 years ago, and we worked with US from that time. And only 5 years ago, we started to invest heavily on working with Europe and especially with UK. And this is because US was very open and they were able to take risks. And Europe is a little bit more conservative, and UK is best from European countries in taking risks. And this is why at this time we have office in London, and our London office is leading business development in all Europe. And UK is fifth economy in the world, and in population is far from fifth. It means that it is big lack of talents and need of new talents in UK. And even for the talents that work in IT industry here, it is very multinational. And for London is much more than like 60% of IT talents is not local. They are foreign. It means that there is big opportunity for increased cooperation between Ukraine and UK. And second, all the world is moving now economy in the world moving to digital transformation, and UK is one of the leading countries there. And we see big potential in fintech industry especially, and in retail, in healthcare. And also it was said by Mike that it is important time to market here, not cost. Cost is in many cases even secondary, and Ukraine here could be very good partner, because Ukraine is #1 destination for outsourcing, let's say. I don't like that word, but UK-based Global Sourcing Association named Ukraine as #1 destination for outsourcing in 2017. But outsourcing is old world, and Ukraine is not for outsourcing. I would say maybe India could be considered as outsourcing point. Ukraine is place for IT R&D services, and it is #1 in that, because Ukraine has very flexible talents pool, and this flexibility could be considered in two ways. The first way, it is flexible as IT talent market, and our company, an example, had SLA with our clients for providing needed IT talents within 1 month, and usually using our internal processes, we can combine a pretty big team out 50, 100 professionals, even within 2 weeks. But for UK, according to recent information, I found that average time to find talent is near 60 days. It's not acceptable for R&D project, for new product development. It probably could be okay in long-term project by big corporation, but even for big corporations that want to launch new products, for market, time to market is very, very important. And so Ukraine is the best. And even in comparison with other Eastern European countries that also a good destination for R&D work, we have offices in Poland, in Bulgaria. I can say that Ukrainian IT market is much more agile and more suitable for R&D product, especially with big demand in time to market. Another point of flexibility of Ukrainian IT market, it is the nature of Ukrainians as innovative people that looking for the best solution. And I already told 2 days ago that our clients and even the members of our international global management team would like to mention that Ukrainians want to ask why, and our clients love that. Because our clients have clear goals, especially clear business goals, but the way how to get to this goal is not clear. And especially now, in the way of agile development, it's not clear. And Ukrainians are very good in asking a lot of why questions and propose innovative solutions for every task. And when look on like possibility for cooperation between UK and Ukraine, I want to point your attention on other side, some like value side, more culture side. Ukraine can complement UK in many areas, and what is the most important is the core for business culture. For Western countries and UK especially, the core of business culture is rules and processes. In Ukraine, it is relationships and flexibility, and this combination is great source for success, because Ukraine is flexible, so we can take rules established by like UK partners, and we will work according to that rules, and we will build partnership. We are relationship oriented, so we build partnership, and we are not looking for transaction-based projects. We build partnership forever, and it brings like innovation and partnership, and it is source for success.
Simon, yeah, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, in terms of the timing is perfect. If you look at If you talk about talent, the UK tech industry at any given time has a 100,000 person shortage in terms of what the industry needs and what the talent in the UK is able to supply. So clearly the UK tech industry is looking internationally and looking for excellent tech talent, which of course Ukraine has in abundance. So there's a clear opportunity there. And I think if you look, Brexit changes quite a few things in terms of the way the UK is looking outward for collaboration. So clearly there's an opportunity for a country such as Ukraine to really throw open its arms, and the UK will be looking and willing to embrace. So there's that. But I think in terms of if you look at the landscape for collaboration, it's interesting to look at what the UK government is saying in terms of the priorities for the UK society. So they've released something called the Grand Challenges. It's 4 Grand Challenges which the UK government has defined as being core to economic growth for the UK. These 4 Grand Challenges aren't really specific to the UK. I think any country could pick them. They are the use of AI and data, clean growth, ageing society, and transport, future of mobility. So these are 4 areas where the UK is seeking to really be at the cutting edge from a technology point of view, but also feeding into the wider economy. And we have a 100,000 person shortage currently. That's only going to get bigger. We don't know how the EU agreement, if there is one, is going to exist, but certainly there's going to be some limitation on movement of EU people coming from the EU into the UK, probably. We don't know, but probably the status quo will change in some form. So there's a real opportunity for countries which are able to work with UK industry and global industry. I mean, if I look through our membership, 1/3 of our membership is globally headquartered. But they've come to the UK to come and operate for access for the UK, but also the EU, the Commonwealth, and the wider market. So you have an international market situated in the UK, which is seeking to take on the 4 biggest, I've identified 4 big challenges of the day, which are effectively applied to any country, and we have a shortage of talent. So if you put all of that together, and then you look at what's happening in Ukraine, and I'm not an expert on Ukraine, there's enough of them in this room, so it's okay. But if you look at what's happening in Ukraine, there will clearly be some excellent opportunities for UK-Ukrainian relations to go beyond just the first 2 letters.
And my question, Simon, about competition. So competition today is still Silicon Valley dominated in high-tech industry, but countries and especially cities like Berlin, like recently Paris started to compete, like President Macron, he supported this initiative, Station F. So, and there is a lot of initiatives around this. How competitive London and the other cities, how you feel in this competition, because this competition around the talents, you know, and unfortunately for us, for Ukraine, like already a couple of millions very, very talented people immigrate from Ukraine to other countries. So how are you competitive and do you have some program here? Or, please.
So I mean, the UK is obviously a fairly desirable place to live, with the exception of the food and the weather.
The weather is great, and yesterday it was.
Oh, it's always like that, yeah. If you stick around for a few months, it's going to get a bit chilly, but I guess it's all relative. The UK is there are many reasons why tech companies come and set up their businesses in the UK in terms of R&D, which is currently around 1.7% of GDP, but there's a commitment to grow that to 3% with a target of 2.4% by the end of, I think, 2027. So that's going to increase. There's huge amounts of R&D. We've got fantastic universities. We mentioned Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, LSE, straight all across the country. English language, culture, investment community, rule of law, talent. There's significant reasons for companies to set up in the UK and to continue to set up in the UK. Access to the Americas if you're not from that part of the world, or access to the EU. Okay, the latter we need to work out what that exactly looks like. But the UK is still a thriving economy, and there's still a lot of reasons for companies to come here and play. But it doesn't mean, it's not a zero-sum game in terms of the global tech market. London doing well doesn't mean that Paris or Berlin or Tel Aviv or Silicon Valley does worse, and vice versa. The way that the tech ecosystem is set up, people are going from one country, one city, one company to another, and talent is being shared and knowledge is being shared. And actually, the more tech hubs that we have, the better that is for everybody. If you take, in terms of looking at Ukraine, if you take you mentioned Paris, you mentioned Berlin, you mentioned Silicon Valley, I've mentioned London. If you take somewhere like Tel Aviv is really interesting, and Yaroslav spoke about the culture. If you look at the culture around Israel in terms of startup and innovation, 40 years ago, if you ask people in Israel, if you ask a classic Jewish mother, what do you want their son to be? It would be doctor, accountant, lawyer. If you ask them that today, entrepreneur, doctor, accountant, lawyer. And there's a big cultural shift. There's a number of other reasons which are relatively well documented in terms of why Israel has done that. But if you look at the cultural shift, and one of the reasons why tech startup scenes do so well is that you create a culture where people aren't afraid to fail and people will take risks. And so the UK is quite a risk-taking country, again, relatively speaking. US Silicon Valley is they're very happy to take risks, and there's money and support to do that. Same with Israel. If you can build that, not desire to risk, but the tolerance of risk and the tolerance of failure, then you can really create an interesting and exciting ecosystem, which will mean that you will very quickly have your next Google, Microsoft, Spotify, whoever.
I think one of the reasons why Israel is so successful, because of half of employees in every high-tech company is like from Ukraine, from Russia, from Belarus.
This is true, yeah. In the 90s,
I had three companies. I had three companies in Israel, so it's actually Russian and now Ukrainian language is.
Yeah, it's very true. You read the book Startup Nation. There's a whole chapter dedicated to the migration that happened in the 90s.
I would use this to re-emphasize the point of small.
Yeah.
Every entrepreneur starts as one.
Yes.
Maybe with a buddy.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is you raised ARM. About 2 years after ARM got going, I was inspired by it. I was working with a firm called Argonaut as a client, and I said to Argonaut that they ought to copy ARM, and in fact they did. Argonaut was a software games company at that time. This is 1994, famous for Firefox or something. But they were really falling behind on the production, but they had a brilliant rendering engine. And so we basically created Arc. And that became the rendering engine that actually made them a lot of money, as the game side did the usual kind of record production of highs and lows. But ARM was the same thing, and the reason we were inspired was, that we weren't going to build a fab plant. Yeah. Now, I think we'll probably disagree on this, but I agree with you a bit about, Israel, because I was touring Israel back in, the 80s, and watching the very early stages of what was happening there. But government funding, direct government funding for tech and direct government R&D actually function as a negative. These are, I used to run 40% of government R&D in the UK between 94 and 2000 in the MOD. That's 40% of government R&D. It's a negative. It actually subtracts from innovation, economic laws of scientific research, Dr. Terence Keeley. And I don't like that, because the small bit is there. Now, that doesn't mean government funding isn't helpful in areas like universities and all that, but these direct R&D targets actually displace private sector R&D. And when you think small, think Google. Google started off as a single box on a page. That was the great thing. It was, wow, this is a really simple page. I type something in it. And it's this ability to think small that matters. And I think the opportunity for the Ukraine, it might sadly be because of what we're doing here, which is impeding small. If you go back to those fintech firms, I'll stick to fintech, that I know, what people don't understand is what the City of London is. They think the City of London is a financial hub. Right? It's actually not. The actual major processing centers are out with the Battery Hens and Canary Wharf. Most of London is tech, and the City of London, 483,000 people at last count, come to the City of London every day. 8,000 stay there overnight. 483,000 come in every day, 8,000 go stay home overnight. So when I'm in the City of London, there's a 99% chance that anybody on the street is there to do business. You know, they're not walking the dog, they're not buying milk. They're there to do business, they're there to work. Now, the next thing you get is, again, it's even a local misconception. Those 483,000 people work in 24,000 businesses. So again, the city is divided into a handful of big businesses and a whole hunk of very, very small businesses. It's almost a complete touch. And what makes it exciting is intensity. You know, it's the intensity of working, it's the intensity of the pubs. And you get a little bit of that at Canary Wharf, but not really. You know, they kind of go into their Battery Hen farm, they go up to the 17th floor, they go down to the 15th for lunch, they go up to the 17th floor, and then they take the longest commutes in the UK back home. Right. The City of London has been functioning as this intense ability to meet people. And it's not just in finance by any means. So we've got very strong biotech, very strong tech, you know, quantum computing, which is physics really. So we're looking at a very, very different model. Now that model is going to get seriously challenged. 49% of the fintech businesses are owned by foreigners. 49%. 42% of the workers in those businesses are foreign, and that breaks up as roughly 12% non-EU and 28% EU. And as Simon said, whatever happens, there's going to be a regime. Turn that around. I said these firms are around 5 people, right? So they're famous for their large HR departments, right? I don't think so. And we're about to treble their visa bureaucracy, because it's going to go from half out of 5, you know, to 42% of the firm. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I think the opportunity for the Ukraine, and this is your point, which I agree with Yaroslav, is time to market, finding the talent quickly and delivering. And I think there could be a huge opportunity for the Ukraine if you're open to visas from other countries and things. I sit there and say, I need really good talent. I need it right away. It's got to come from the best places in the world. And what most people forget is these people do need to work together. There's a lot of garbage about kind of, you know, IT people, you know, working remotely and all that. That is garbage. You know, most real systems were built, in my opinion, by 3 people and 3 people only. Any software project that takes more than 3 people at the core is probably never going to succeed. It's an art. It's not a science. And almost all, remember, this is the home to all of the scientific management of IT projects. In other words, home to the greatest disasters in IT are UK government projects. And I think, you know, got to pushing that boundary there. If you can be a partner for the UK on helping them be flexible and deal with small firms, while we're currently shooting ourselves in the foot about access, I think that could be a big plus.
Yaroslav, so my question to you. So I remember like 11 years ago I did an IPO here in London Stock Exchange with valuation a couple of billions dollars actually. And today for Ukrainian companies, so Ukraine has very attractive agriculture business. And nowadays it's you know, new businesses born on the field of different technologies, different type of industries, you know. And we have it's top 10 home market talking about agriculture. So, talking about AgTech, in the world there is no champion yet. Nobody, this penetration is very, very small, talking about IT penetration in this agriculture. What do you think about this sector? Can we create in Ukraine, you know, this, can Ukraine be one of the champion top 3 countries? What do you think? I know your company involved in some projects.
Yeah, well, I would not put like IT and agriculture as like one like separate major focus. It's like really important, and many companies work in that, and especially in Ukraine when actually agriculture and IT is booming. And even our company works in that direction. We have a couple very good IoT in agriculture projects, and I know that like another company based at Lviv has like very good agriculture-related project with involvement of drones and like also other IoT projects. And actually, one representative of that company will be speaking on one of the next panels. But I want to touch the point of like product and startup development, like in general. And in Ukraine, IT services business is 70 or even 80% of all IT market. And it is, as look on IT industry in Ukraine, it is old in comparison with startups. And it builds ground for startup movement. And startup movement is flourishing right now in Ukraine. And it is also opportunity of cooperation with UK, and London is one of 3 biggest hubs for startups together with Silicon Valley and Tel Aviv, as it was said. And but in Ukraine, startups could be supported only on initial stages because there are no big venture capital there. And it is very well established pattern right now in Ukraine when startups are getting some early stage investment up to 1 million in Ukraine. And for the next stage, they start cooperation with some like global venture industry and mostly with Silicon Valley right now. So just simply speaking, company started in Ukraine, taking 1 million investment, and after that, they move marketing, sales, business development office to Silicon Valley, incorporate there, all product development part still in Ukraine, but company is not Ukrainian anymore, but company is like US based. And it is only way for now to develop Ukrainian company, but it is big opportunity for UK and for London to take part in this game together with Silicon Valley. And there are some advantages London has in comparison to Silicon Valley because it's very close. It is direct flight, 2 hours, and almost the same time zone, and also like fifth economy and fintech, biotech, all like digital industries flourishing there, and a lot of capital there. So it is, together with IT services, it is big opportunity for cooperation.
I'd like to ask audience maybe some questions to our panelists. Okay, it's coming. So my question, maybe the last one. So can you, in short, just share your dreams? Because I think it's very, very important to dream about something. So, and my first dream was, about to see London, because I've studied in very, very small city. So in 25 years, I did it, And about dreams. So I can start myself. So I think it's we are living in a very, very interesting time because everything changed already, especially in the past 7, 8 years, especially after Steve Jobs created this stuff. So, and now we see companies like Uber, Airbnb, and a lot of examples. So, with a revolutionary idea, not in technology, but because technology already created many years ago. We are using technology like 20 years ago. It was microchips, just only numbers of transistors changed, a couple of billions. transistor on the chip. So, but technology already exists for 20, 30 years. So, and I think it's, I believe. So it will be in my dream to create the tool to monetize social capital directly, not through advertisement, but monetize social capital and monetize, because I'm involved in a couple of cultural projects in Ukraine, and musicians and actors. And actually I'm working on, I'm an angel investor in one of the company which creating these tools. So because it's talking about capitalism is, and the money, so I'm not socialist, but it's for me not the main driver for modern people. So this is my dream, and I think I will see this soon. You know, the type how you can live without this money. You know, so that's.
Well, there's an old joke which runs a man becomes prime minister and he turns to his wife exceedingly proud and he says to her, "Honey, did you imagine that we would ever do this in our wildest dreams?" And she says, "Honey, you don't feature in my wildest dreams." So I will leave my wildest dreams to one side and focus on my wildest business dreams. And I think there I am a bit like you, Evgeni. I mean, I really am oddly optimistic. For those of you who don't know, there are 110 livery companies in the City of London. This year I've had the privilege of being the master of the world traders. We are actually probably the most political of them. We're all sort of apolitical. But free trade, open trade, not capitalism, free trade, open trade, has a political bias to it, you know, whether you like it or not. And we were, I would say, about 2/3, 1/3 against Brexit. You know, we didn't see the point. We thought that, you know, pragmatically the European Union was a reasonable thing to be in and facilitated trade. But that's not what's happened. And my dream is that the challenge of Brexit forces Britain to grow up. You know, a lot of the talk here is London versus the rest of the country. Well, I've had the privilege, sadly, sometimes of traveling the rest of the country. I set up a mine up in the Yorkshire moors, and you know, the condition of a place like Scarborough is insulting in a first world country. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there, poverty-wise. You know, my staff always joke, you know, because I'm always telling them that I'm going beyond the circle line, and I really need to prepare myself because it's bad out there. London is a very special entity, and I would like London to thrive, but I would also like the rest of the UK to thrive, and I would also like the rest of Europe to thrive. And in my view, that's done through free and open trade. And I think Brexit provides the opportunity for Britain to be honest about its current condition and then to use that challenge to rise to it. I'm not claiming that I'd give great odds on that, but that's what I'm striving for. And so in my dream, we will have not just a Europe, but a world of free and open trade. It may not be free and open migration, but it should be basically, you know, that people actually control the financial. So I'm going to sound a bit like Silvio Gesell in 1900, where he talked about free trade, by which he meant trade in goods and services, but also in the movements of people. He talked about free land, which he didn't mean free. What he meant was that we recognize the commonality of land, and that drives you into things like land value taxes. And he spoke about free money, and he didn't mean that we were giving people money. What he meant was that the money supply was actually controlled in the interests of the people. And I think those are three good things that would allow us to thrive globally and maybe more parochially at a European level with the Ukraine.
Okay, Yaroslav and Simon, we have a couple of minutes. You know,
so I will be like very short. So in business terms, dreams are first, and dreams are transformed to business goals. And when talk about our company, me personally, and IT companies and Ukrainian IT companies at all, it is very like big like goal right now. Actually, new niche that was developed recently. So previously there was strategic consulting that was provided by big four companies and some like other smaller, and it was implementation of that. And nowadays, IT plays so important role in transformation, in strategy for the companies. So now appears new niche between strategic consulting and IT implementation, I would say strategic IT consulting. And we see that big four companies, other consulting companies are moving to that niche, and IT companies, especially well-developed companies that work in IT services, are in very good position to take that. And we already started move there, and my dream, my business dream, goal is that our company will play significant role in this niche as strategic IT consultant, advisor, and provider.
Yeah, good luck.
Very quickly then, completely agree with my fellow panelists, especially Michael, in terms of the role of trade, the role of Britain, the opportunity that there's obviously challenges with Brexit, but the opportunity to look beyond the EU and actually say, how can we really create a global trading environment is really exciting. I think from a technology point of view, when we do a lot of work with smart cities, and if you ask people, do you want to live in a smart city? They go, yeah. And they say, do you know what a smart city is? And they go, well, it's a city that's smart. Which isn't wrong, but I don't think it's right. And I think my understanding of a smart city is a city that works to make it easier for its citizens to go about doing their daily life, whether that's understanding where traffic is whether that's understanding where car parking spaces are, whether that's understanding where there's a market on, where there's certain things that are going to be a benefit to the city. And we use technology as a platform to make it easier for citizens to go about their daily life and enjoy their daily life. And I think if you take that and say, well, that's what technology should be for everything, it should be there for people to be able to get the most from life, to be able to get the most in terms of leisure, but also in order to enable growth. So that's really kind of where I'd come at it from a technology point of view.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just ask about, do we have some couple of minutes? Okay, please.
It seems that the critical success factors, Silicon Valley was amazing at great universities in tech, super smart people from everywhere in the world, and then incredibly fast finance. So really switched on finance people to give the money quickly, take a risk quickly, and you got a whole, and Silicon Valley is fabulous. You try doing that in the Midwest of the US, forget it. You know, you got all the cows and you know that. But besides that, Israel's a microcosm of that. Japan, super smart people, but everything has to be done Japanese way, and then really hard to get money. Now, Masayoshi Son might change that with his $100 billion of essentially EdTech investment fund. If you look at Ukraine, super smart people, quite international, moving there, but I see an issue in terms of access to money. It's difficult, you know. One, they probably don't have the money to, so that's where London can come in, bang, okay, I'll give you the money. And EdTech, and I don't know much about fintech, etc. So that's a real issue here. So how fast can we get the money to the SoftServes of this world, and how hard was it, and this might be a difficult question, how hard was it for you to start this company? Really? When you started out, how hard was it to get the money, to get the employees, to get your dream? I mean, Mr. Maud Alibaba started Alibaba with a group of, he was a teacher, maths teacher, bang. China, very fast, he got the money, because China's got more money than you can poke a stick at, so he got the money and got the dream done. How hard was it for you, and how hard would it be for other Ukrainians?
I think in short, it's very, very hard. No, it's totally big issue in Ukraine, access to finance. But good news is talking about fintech. So nowadays is ICOs and a couple of companies in Ukraine use this tool to find finance. So I believe in the future it will be the main source, crowdfunding. So, and main source not only for Ukrainian company, but for every company. And next question. Okay.
Thanks very much. Vish Mathur, I work for Innovex, a good premium solution engineering firm in Ukraine. Question to Simon, actually. You talked about three things. Talked about Brexit, talked about 100,000 talent gap in UK, and we talked about 4 grand challenges. The opportunity is there for Ukrainian companies to come in there and provide what Yaroslav is talking about. What are the roadblocks? What are we as Ukrainian companies having to compete against to truly be partners of choice in UK markets?
There's currently migration issues which are being looked at and will continue to be looked at. So hopefully that will make it easier on the talent point of view. There's competition, I think is the other one. But really, other than that, I mean, if you can get to the UK and you can talk to people and you've got a credible business idea, there is money. I mean, going back to gentleman's point earlier, there is money in London and in the UK. So the issue is getting talent across, but the Migration Advisory Committee recommended that highly skilled talent should be given a much easier path to come to the UK. Non-EU citizens, you would assume, post-Brexit would have an easier time coming to the UK. Obviously, none of this is guaranteed. So if you can get to the UK and you've got a good idea, I think really there's nothing stopping you.
Okay, and last question. Yeah, please.
My question is to Evgeni and Yaroslav. What advice would you give to foreign investors that want to invest in the Ukrainian technology sector?
So just start to not talk, but do this immediately. So because it's definitely Ukraine is a very, very good place to invest, talking about brains. So it's one of the best places in Europe, definitely. So, and just easy, do it.
Yeah, so I would agree with that, and I would say that Ukrainian IT sector could be considered as 3 parts. The first part is IT service companies, another part, the established product companies that work on local Ukrainian market and global market, and startups. For each this niche, it is different approach. But for IT services company, you can work with association, like an example, IT Ukraine, the biggest IT association of IT service companies in Ukraine. You will have better knowledge what are players, and you can work with them, invest, and even recently there are many examples of investment in such type of companies. Even there is some approach that like potential investors take target company with size from like 500 to 1,000 people, and after that do several other M&A to have like company bigger in size that will be able to work with bigger client with help of investment company. In other like product companies, there are many like good, I would say, like replica of global companies in Ukraine. Like an example, Rosetka, it is like Ukrainian Amazon, and there were also announced several investment in such type of companies. You can do that. For startups, I mentioned already that there are many startups, many startup incubators, accelerators in Ukraine, but they work on very, very low scale of investment. And for the next stage, you can partner with those accelerator or with Ukrainian venture companies, and you can bring ready company to London, incorporate here or invest in Ukraine and develop that. And it's easy because there are, for IT and for capital, there are no borders.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues.